So what John wanted me to talk about, John and I were kind of just shooting the whatever you want to call it the other day about handling situations and stuff that happens with umpires in the field. And one of the concerns he expressed, I'm sure that Jim and Bill can speak to this as well, was that a lot of times umpires, despite the fact that we go to camps and we talk about how to handle situations and what to do and all the checklists of things to do, a lot of times umpires either don't react, don't do anything, or they do the checklist in their head and they just eject somebody and there's no explanation, which causes a lot of work for John or whoever it is that you happen to be working for at the moment to have to explain after the fact because there's not a lot going on. And it just so happened that as we were having this conversation, and bear with me because I'm not the replay center here like Tom is, but I'm trying to share a couple things here. As we were having this conversation, I happened to come across this video on Facebook. I hope everybody can see this. I think, well, hold on. Let me make sure I did the audio, Tom. Yep, we're good. All right. I hope everybody can see this. There should be audio that comes along with it as well. It's a really short clip, but we're going to watch it real quick, and this is what we're going to be talking about. Look. Oh, yeah! Oh! Slightly low! Slightly low! All right, so obviously the batter's not happy in that situation. So can we see the PowerPoint on here? I'm not screwing this up. Yes? I'm going to assume that's a yes. All right, so in this situation, we've got two options. A lot of people might look at. We can either eject or not eject. Obviously, this umpire chose not to eject. I'm not saying that there was a reason to eject somebody. A lot of times ejection is going to happen and they're going to be required, but this is just talking about the gray area, right? So we hear this phrase all the time. This is one of the favorite quotes of people that have never umpired, where they say the best umpire games are the ones where nobody even knows the umpire is there. I absolutely despise this quote. This is the worst thing that has ever been said about umpires, period. And the reason why is because we have a third option in this situation. And it's what John and I were talking about. I'm sure that Bill and Jim could speak to this as well. And I encourage you to, if you feel like chiming in, I'm not going to be upset. We want you to engage with these batters. We want you to engage with these guys. When there's a situation where it's not an automatic ejection, you need to engage with the on-field personnel so that there's a line of communications going on. What does engaging mean? Engaging means that players, this is how you handle situations. When you talk about handling situations, it means you engage them. All right, it's just like if you're walking down the street and you run into somebody, you're engaging the guy that there might be a problem with. You're not ignoring them or assuming something's going on. It is not possible to engage with players without people knowing that the umpire is there. So therefore, if we were going to quote unquote handle a situation, it means that we have a presence on the field. So going back to that quote that we just talked about where nobody knew he's there, either that means nothing happened in that game or he was too afraid to handle the situation. Think about it like this now. All right, let's say you're with your friends and you've never played the game of spades and you're joining them and they've invited you to play a game of spades and they're experts, they're veterans, they know all the rules, they know all the tricks, they know how to count cards, all this stuff, and they invite you and they expect you to know the rules without instruction, right? So you're playing, you're kind of at a disadvantage, aren't you? Because they know all the rules, they haven't taught you anything, now you're going to play it. Anybody that doesn't know how to play spades, I'm sure that's a fairly intimidating concept. Now, when we discuss umpiring, in college baseball and also in high school baseball, there are a significant number of umpires at the college level who have a significant amount of professional baseball umpire experience. Why is that relevant? Because professional baseball umpires are provided opportunities on a daily basis to learn the rules of engagement. What are the rules of engagement? They are what we learn at umpire school, where we say you can't do this, you can't argue this, you can't cross this line, you can't do this. These are the things that help to propel umpires' careers that we learn as building blocks to help do our job correctly on the field. Additionally, if you're a college umpire that doesn't have professional experience or has never been to an umpire school, a significant amount of you, and I'd say even more than that, a lot of you guys go to camps a lot. I know because I've seen it. And where do we get the drills and the concepts and the things that we discuss and teach at camps? We get it from those reps and those rules that come up with the unwritten rules, the rules of engagement from the professional umpires as well as other umpires that work a significant number of games. And this is how we teach this stuff. We teach you how to engage the on-field personnel during these camps. Well, here's the problem. High school and college players are never taught the ground rules for engagement. And I know this because from my experience, when I played high school and college, Roger Sherwood, who's pictured here, is the only umpire who ever provided me any training as a player, because he would come into our locker room once a year at Lake Braddock and teach us the rule changes from last year. And the only reason why is because his son Eric played center field for us. That's the only time it ever crossed my mind to talk about umpiring versus playing. And the reason why that's a problem is because players, what does everybody say when they say handling situations? What do they all say? Oh, just don't put the word you in front of something. That's what they think handling situations is. You can do whatever you want on the field as long as you don't preface the word with you. They are basically minimalizing every single thing that we do on the field, that we learn, and how to handle situations and control it, because they haven't used the word you. Now, that's not their fault. I mean, why would they go to an umpire school? They're players, right? So you need to remember, when you're handling these situations, that players, coaches, and fans do not have the same training that you do. I wish they all did. I would love to do webinars for all of them right now during this downtime. It'd be fantastic. Our lives would be so much easier, but it's not going to happen, right? So the coaches, fans, and players don't have that same training. And because of that, players and coaches not knowing the rules of engagement provides a major advantage to the umpire in these situations. Why is that relevant? Because we have an issue with umpires, and this tends to happen a lot with, there's a perception that professional umpires are so mean when they come to college baseball and blah, blah. It's not that they're mean. It's that there's an expectation of professionalism on their part, and anybody that's gone to a college camp and learned stuff, or worked legitimate college baseball and done stuff, there's an expectation that the players and coaches and other on-field personnel know these ground rules and the rules of engagement, but they don't. And the problem is that when the umpires are unable to recognize the fact that they become increasingly agitated with the on-field personnel lack of knowledge of these rules, which leads to our wonderful favorite hashtag that we all see. I've seen it for high school, I've seen it for college, I've seen it for pro ball, ump show, right? It's not an ump show, it's just it's an ignorance show on the part of the on-field personnel. So that brings us back to option 3. Option 3 is the engaging of a player. I want you to think about this. This is what John and I were talking about. When you engage a player, especially in the situation that we just saw in this video, you have the opportunity to educate not just that player, but the other players on the field, the coaches, and the fans who are watching this situation, and they are learning the rules of engagement by watching you. If you do nothing, you are making his behavior acceptable. And now when he moves on to another game and he does this same thing and someone calls him out, he's going to say, well, what's the problem? I thought this was okay. The rules of engagement were prefaced that I can yell and scream and cuss and do whatever I want because you're not going to do anything. Whereas the other side of the coin, if you just eject him for no reason, because in your head you did everything right and you learned everything and you know the checklist and the violations that he has done with on-field rules of engagement, you ejected him correctly, but he doesn't know any better. So in both situations, the on-field personnel, whether it be a player, coach, whomever, is left wondering what the heck just happened. They don't know what's going on. So even though you handled the situation, nobody learned anything and the behavior is going to continue. So when you're engaging, I want you to consider, first of all, you need to give them their initial reaction, right? This is the reason why we developed equipment violations, because people are going to have their unconscious initial reaction. And the purpose of an equipment violation is to give the player an ability to stay in the game and still be punished and not punish him for his reaction to being a human. Now, if he chooses to now proceed further and consciously decides to be a jerk, whatever the case may be, as clearly happens in this video, as this guy's walking away, he is still screaming and yelling. There are ways you can handle this. Don't scream and yell at him, but there are ways you can talk to him, just like I'm talking right now. Hey, what are you doing? Or do you really think it's okay to yell that? Do you really think it's okay to do that? The insinuation being, no, it's not okay. Or if the coach starts walking down because he sees it, hey, coach, are you really okay with this? Or better yet, you look at the player. Do you really think that I'm going to allow you to stay in this game if you continue to behave in this manner? You are basically teaching him and anybody watching that he cannot persist in that manner and remain in the game. Also consider this. Every time you say any of those phrases, that's a warning. You didn't actually say, I am warning you that you cannot continue. You are telling them you can't do this, though. And your ejection report is going to be so much stronger if it leads to that fact, because umpires never eject players. Players eject themselves, right? And you're going to look that much stronger in the report when it goes on. And John, I'm a minute over, so I'm almost done, but I want you to consider Bruce Fleming's quote in relation to the quote that we started. One of the really wrong theories about officiating is that a good official is one you never notice. The umpire who made that statement was probably a real poor official who tried to get his paycheck and hide behind his partners and stay out of trouble all his life. Control of the ball game is the difference between umpires that show up for the players and the managers, because controlling the game means engaging with the players, means defining what the rules of engagement are, and means making sure that everything is done correctly so that the game proceeds to have an eventual winner and goes on for the betterment of the entire league. That's all I got.
Chris, if I can just add, I know you encouraged us jumping in. Just very quickly, I'm so glad you brought this up, because I will tell you as an evaluator, this is so common that we see these missed opportunities to educate. And you can't underestimate the importance on this of body language, too, that goes along with this. Because to say certain things to players or to coaches without the rest of the world knowing it, you're really not educating everybody else. It's important that they see that engagement, that they see some sort of a physical engagement, and you don't have to be aggressive, but there needs to be a visual component to that so that the rest of the world understands that if they cross this line, that they are going to be engaged, maybe not ejected, but certainly engaged. And I think that goes a long way towards that education. I'm so glad you brought this up because it's really one of the missing components here, and it would help to prevent so many more possible situations from happening. They'll never happen because we've gotten out in front of it and we've educated. So thank you for that, Chris.
So guys, this is going to be a continuing feature where we are going to learn not just what the four basic steps of ignoring, acknowledgement, and so on. People know those steps, but they don't know how to proceed from one step to the other, or they don't have the courage to. And so this is what we're going to try to get across.